The Sony ZV-E10 might be the new king of vlogging cameras. They took the specs of a professional camera and put it in a vlogging camera body, which gives you the best of both worlds, but they made some key mistakes when it comes to the vlogging features, which might cause this camera to crash and burn. So let's find out if this camera lives up to the hype and how it compares to everything else out there. Make sure to check out the links in the description down below for the best and most up-to-date pricing on any of the camera gear that we talk about today. Let's get into the video. The Sony ZV-E10 is actually an upgrade to a recent Sony camera, the Sony ZV-1, which has the exact same body type. The Sony ZV style of body is specifically designed for vloggers and YouTube content creators. Now this camera has three major features that I really should talk about. First up, we have a side articulating screen, which will make your life a whole lot easier. One, you'll be able to see yourself and vlog comfortably, but also it's really useful for getting high angle or low angle photography and video shots. And the second feature is the onboard audio. Not only is this going to make your life a whole lot easier by having your camera small and compact, but this onboard audio is actually almost as good as an external microphone. Not only are you going to have a small, compact, space-saving camera, but it's also going to save you $100 to $150. And don't worry, there is an audio test later in this video. And last but not least, the button layout is fantastic. It has a nice big juicy record button for video right at the top. That sounds dirty, it's not really meant to be, but instead of a mode dial, it has a one button switch that goes between photo mode, video mode, and S&Q mode. This is going to save you a ton of time and overall just make that camera easier to operate. Plus, it has two really awesome and unique features. It's literally what every vlogger has been asking for, but this also might be the place where this camera goes completely wrong. Next, let's talk about the sensor. So what's the difference between the Sony ZV-E10 and what makes it so much better than every single vlogging camera out there? Well, it's pretty simple. Most vlogging cameras are point and shoots, which have a teeny tiny 1-inch, maybe a 20 megapixel sensor, which is literally the size of my thumbnail. The APS-C sensor in the Sony ZV-E10 is not only 3 times bigger, but it also gathers 15 times more light. So the Sony ZV-E10 is really going to give you that proper big boy camera look. Now most vlogging cameras have a built-in lens. The Sony ZV-E10 changes that by letting you switch out your lenses and gives you an interchangeable lens system. So you can get a cheap, easy to afford kit lens, but you still have 100% access to the more expensive, high quality lenses that are available to professionals. This is literally a camera that can grow with you. The closest competitor to the Sony ZV-E10 is the Canon M50, and one of the big downsides of that camera is the fact that it needs a Canon M mount, which only lets you use a really small group of Canon lenses. If you want to upgrade your lens system, you're going to need a $150 to a $250 adapter. You can get this adapter for as low as $100, but they don't work that well. The most important and impressive thing is the pro level specs like frame rate, shooting speeds, and autofocus that this camera is way better at than every other vlogging camera in this category, including the M50. When it comes to photos, this camera has similar specs to a $1,400 or $1,800 camera. But what makes this camera special is the fact that it shoots 14-bit RAW and high-quality JPEGs at 10 frames per second. The 14-bit RAW gives you an incredible amount of flexibility for editing in Photoshop and Lightroom. This is a great camera for YouTube thumbnails or social media posts that most vloggers and content creators need to make. And the one downside of this camera is that it does not have an electronic viewfinder. Now, 99% of vloggers probably won't care, but if you are someone that likes an optical viewfinder or an EVF, it's something you should know. Now, if you're looking at this camera, let's be honest, what you really care about is video and vlogging, so let's talk about it. So when it comes to video, there's a lot to talk about because like I said earlier, this is the first time vloggers get the opportunity to have pro level features in their camera. So first things first, this camera does 4K and Full HD uncropped at 24 frames per second, which is the mode that 99.999% of you will live in when it comes to vlogging. The 4K is actually downscaled from 6K, so it looks a lot better than its competition when it comes to detail and sharpness in video mode. Also, the really cool thing about this camera is that most cameras in this price range and category actually don't give you uncropped 4K. Most cameras at this price level will crop into your 4K, which means it zooms in your image and it honestly just completely destroys the quality of your video, but also you can't get a wide shot that you need for vlogging. You also get a ton of slow motion options where it gives you Full HD up to 60 frames per second for 2 times slow motion and 120 frames per second in Full HD for 5 times slow motion. One of my favorite features about this camera and really any Sony camera is the autofocus. The autofocus is absolutely brilliant and it works well at any frame rate. Sony cameras have great face and object tracking, which makes your life a whole lot easier, especially if you're a vlogger or a hobbyist who just wants to capture the moment, focus on speaking, you don't want to mess with the technical stuff. Trust me, it's really hard to talk on camera and get the words right. I do this for a living, it's hard. You don't want to be thinking about focus. But I did notice that it doesn't work well when you have a face mask on, which is kind of a disappointment considering everything that's going on. Most of us will have a face mask on, so this might or might not be a deal breaker for you. Plus, it has a really unique feature, and this is one of the things that I mentioned earlier in this video, and this is called Product Showcase. It seamlessly tracks between you and an object that you hold up in front of the camera. This is super helpful for product reviews or if you're somebody that holds things up and talks about them in front of the camera. But you have to go slow. If you go too fast between your face and the product, it will get confused and everything will be out of focus. And along with that, it has a really cool feature called DEFOCUS, which adds just an extra hint of blur to your background. Now, it's really subtle and most of you guys won't notice, but it's a really welcome feature, especially if you have a lens that doesn't have a wide aperture and you can't naturally get that blurry depth of field effect. Most people vlog handheld, and standard stabilization is really going to help smooth out your footage. However, active stabilization will give you much smoother results, but it doesn't work super well for vlogging because it zooms in the image and it kind of loses that wide shot that you need for vlogging, but it's still really great for shooting things away from you and doing small movements like little slider shots and doing little walking shots and still getting smooth results. When it comes to vlogging, you have to have crisp and clear audio. Often you have to put a massive and annoying shotgun mic that's also pretty expensive on top of your camera to get proper audio. But the Sony ZV style bodies have built-in internal audio that's really close to a high-end shotgun mic. And in my opinion, you no longer need a good shotgun mic. It works super well even in the busiest of environments. In fact, here's an audio test. All right guys, so it is time for the ultimate vlogging test, and that is vlogging next to a busy road while drinking a coffee. I feel like that's like what every LA vlogger does. But I want to give you guys a pretty good sense of the overall quality of this camera and how it sounds. Welcome back. So let's talk about the most important thing when it comes to the Sony ZV-E10, because this camera does have one major issue that I don't see a lot of people talking about, and that is the color science and skin tones in this camera. I personally don't love the skin tones and colors from this camera, especially when compared to a Canon M50. You'll see some footage right here, but as you can see, my skin's a little too yellow and it's not as vibrant as the Canon camera. Personally, this camera looks best in bright and neutral light. Even though faces don't look as vibrant, it's a pretty easy fix in editing. And this camera does have a beauty mode or skin softening filter. In my opinion, it looks awful. On low mode, it doesn't really do anything, and on high, your entire face looks like plastic. This is a huge misstep for Sony because skin softening or beauty filter is something vloggers would definitely want. I recommend just keeping this mode off and using something like a Pro Mist filter or a Glimmer Glass filter to give your image a softer look and make your skin look better. But that's not to say that this camera is bad or really bad at all. This camera does have a ton of options for color grading and setting up different picture profiles. So if you're someone that's really trying to create something that looks super professional on the same level as high-end vlog or YouTube content, this does have a bunch of color modes built in where you can really tweak and finesse the colors in post-processing. But if you want to take this camera or really any camera and get the best possible results from it, there's only one way to do that, and that is to properly learn how to use it. So if you're interested in learning how to make your videos go from looking like this to this, and your photos from looking like this to this, I put together a free training of 7 simple secrets that will dramatically improve your photos and videos today. These simple secrets include things like frame rates, lens choices, camera angles, and how to get the most out of the gear that you're using right now, even if that gear is a smartphone. I included a link in the description down below, so make sure to check that out. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you want to see more of it, hit the subscribe button, and I hope to see you either in the free training or in the comments.